Welcome to Writing Daily. Hey, all, this is Devin. For those who are new, Writing Daily is about writing better, writing more, getting your stuff done, getting yourself out there and exposed, which I'm doing right now. In case you don't know, my name is Devin Galladay. I am the editor-in-chief of In the Know Traveler, as well as the author of the forthcoming memoir, 10,000 Miles with My Dead Father's Ashes. It's always great to have you join me. Flo, welcome. It's good to see you, not see you, know that you're around. It's wonderful. Anyway, today we were going to have an interview with actually a mystery writer friend of mine. Unfortunately, through some unforeseen circumstances, he wasn't able to make it today, but we will have him out in the future. So Marty, I will look forward to seeing you in the near future and chatting about mysteries and writing and what makes it all worthwhile. A matter of fact, I might have to do an episode about Agatha Christie, who was when I was growing up, like when I was reading books, like when I was 11, 12 years old, I was always reading Agatha Christie, whom I love. So maybe a story for the future, and hopefully we'll get Marty on in the near future. But today, sort of like as a last second cancellation episode, and I think incredibly important, I was reading this book. Anyway, before I say that, the title of this particular episode is called When to Describe Setting. And it's kind of like, how do you dive into the background of stuff? And before we get into that, please take a moment, consider hitting the like button. It lets me know that I'm on track, and lets Facebook know too, which is great stuff. So anyway, this particular book is about writing like the masters. It kind of breaks down in a very scholarly way what a lot of our sort of like favorite writers in terms of history do in their own writing to make it interesting, dramatic, more of whatever. And so I was reading something today in this particular book, which is inspiring to me, and it talks about when do we describe setting, because setting is an interesting thing. Frequently, if you have, let's say, two people in a room in an intense discussion, and they're just ping-ponging back and forth. In other words, Larry said, go make me a sandwich, and Sue said, no, go make it yourself, you selfish pig, or whatever they do during this conversation. At some point, when we go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, we need something else as a reader to kind of keep us glued in the moment. Or where are we having this argument or this loving discussion that Larry and Sue are constantly having? It's hard to know, but I think what it does is it makes a big difference to say if we took the same dialogue that we just talked about now and said, go get me a sandwich, no, you go kill yourself. If we did that with Larry and Sue, it would be one thing to have them, let's say, Larry is sitting in front of the dinner table, waiting, pounding his knife and fork on the table. Sue is yelling at him from the kitchen or from the bedroom upstairs or in the front lawn while she's doing gardening, or whatever it is that she's doing, is very different than to say, we're having this argument, in line at Disneyland. And so in either one of these things, the setting is kind of important. What the writer does, as a matter of fact, this particular book called Write Like the Masters by William Kane, kind of breaks down this idea of when to describe the setting as sort of like three different kind of important points. And so the first one he talks about is selection. So yes, I'm going back to my index cards if you're watching me on video. Selection deals with, just simply put, what is the author's choice? What is the thing? What is the most important elements that is happening in this particular moment? So let's say we want to find out what's happening in Larry and Sue, and obviously they're going to be the principal part of this thing, of this conversation, but perhaps the setting is going to be worthwhile. So if we are selective. We want to pick from, let's say I'm sitting in a room right now that I could easily say there's thousands of things. In other words, there's books over there, but my favorite books are over there. My less favorite books are over there. There is a closet over there filled with some of my daughter's things. There are some records. Ironically, there's also her baby shoes. There's a TV. There's a lamp. There's actually lighting equipment. And I can go into all of that kind of thing. Does the reader need to know all of that? No, of course not. As a matter of fact, if anything, the reader probably wants to know what's the most important thing about the room that we're in, and let's move on. And they're probably not consciously saying it. It's just more often than not, we're going to get bored. I think, so what we're going to choose, what's going to be the most important thing? So in other words, if I would say, oh, well, I'm sitting in this room and my daughter's baby shoes are just to the left of me, then that's an important bit of information. If I say there are books that I just don't care about reading over on the right-hand side of me, we're going to have a different sensibility from whatever the scene is going to bring at that point. So selection is kind of an important thing. The next component to what his William Cain's suggestion is condensation. Condensation, I would just describe as an economy of words. I think I remember reading J.R.R. Tolkien and the Lord of the Rings and sort of classic as a teenager, and I loved it. And at the same time, there were passages where he is describing a blade of grass blowing in the breeze, and he could go on about that the dew on the grass and the thing, and going on and on and on for really a long time. I think there are some benefits, especially when you're creating sort of a magical world or a part of a world that we're not used to. I think it's important to sort of dive into to really create the settings so we understand. I mean, I think Harry Potter's world is done in an exceptional way. A quite beautiful way on top of that. So I think it's important to develop setting, but it's also important to be mindful. Like if you're describing ordinary things, how much can we go into it? So I think it's about keeping it short once you know what those details are, a sentence or so, maybe two. And then finally, the integration. And I think this is really what is the most important thing in this entire section in the book that I was reading. The integration is how that thing either enhances or takes away from the scene that we're about to have. So as an example, the examples here were given from Edith Wharton's writing. And in it, they talked about sort of like the sparseness of actually, I take that back. They talked about the density of the forest that the characters happened to be and how it blotted out the sun. So really, they were only looking at the silhouettes of each other. And I think that is kind of a really important, interesting notion that wherever we're going to start talking about our setting, that it's important to sort of like either ratchet up the tension. So in other words, if a character is feeling, let's say, happy, let's say we've got Laura is skipping, right? Laura is skipping in the sunshine and it's a cloudless sky and there's a light breeze and she's suntanned, and there's our setting, Laura skipping. Laura could still be skipping and we are looking at a mushroom cloud while the rest of her family is, in the bunker with the shutters closed. Either or, you're going to be sort of ratcheting up a sensibility of what Laura's experience is. In other words, if it's a beautiful matching day, that only enhances her experience. If she is dancing during a nuclear fallout, that's a whole different ratcheting up of sensibility for your reader. So anyway, that's, I think, what we've got for today. Lots more coming up in the coming weeks. I hope you're going to keep joining us. If you can't see us live, make sure that you consider asking a question or hitting the wow button or the like button or the share button. And it helps me know whether I'm on the right track, as always. And as always, oh, and of course, if you are not seeing us live, find me on YouTube or Facebook or iTunes, subscribe, rate, do all those kinds of fun things. I'm always, always grateful. And that's what I've got for today. I hope you are writing daily. I've got some writing to do right now, and so I will look forward to talking to you guys again real soon.